Good afternoon. My name is Paul Charnier. I'm the editorial page editor at the Day newspaper, and I welcome you to this week's Lunch with the Candidates, where we'll be discussing the issues in the 2016 election. Today's discussion is with the candidates in the 38th General Assembly District, which covers Waterford and section of Montville. Three candidates today are the Democrat, Sharon Palmer, the Republican incumbent representative, Kathleen McCarty, and Green Party candidate, Lauren Shaw. I'm joined by Martha Shanahan, the Day staff writer who covers the town of Waterford and Montville. We'll just be discussing the issues for the next hour, and we'll give our candidates a chance at the end to provide their summaries. So with that, we're going to go right to our first question, and it's to Representative McCarty. Under the current budget, state budget, Waterford took a big hit with a $1 million cut in state education cost-sharing funding. Did electing a freshman Republican to represent the district end up hurting the district when it came to the fight for state education funds?
Thank you. First, may I just thank the Day for this opportunity with the interview today, and to my two opponents for agreeing to be here. And I'm very pleased that you asked that question. As you know, the state has not met its responsibilities on education, and the ECS grant is the largest state education grant at $2 billion, which is currently underfunded by over $600 million. But I believe that the Republican budget, of which I put forward an amendment, restored the education budget of $1 million to the town of Waterford, which was a very high cut, education cost sharing cut. But it wasn't because I was a freshman legislator. I'm well known, even at the state level, serving on the education committee, as someone who fights for education and understands the needs of education in our community. It was really because of the failed policies of the Democrat majority party that they had to go back repeatedly with deficit mitigation plans, and to look for cost savings, they attacked education. This was not acceptable. In one regard, I'm pleased to see the court case that is pending, because I do think there is a lot of inequity still present in the state of Connecticut when it comes to distributing education funds. So in essence, in a shorter answer, it was not because I was a freshman legislator. It was because the state is facing these pressures on the on budget in general, that education was attacked. And I plan to go back and fight for it and get the education right in the state of Connecticut. Thank you.
Ms. Shaw, any comment on the how the state goes about funding education in Connecticut, and the fact that Waterford in particular saw a big hit in the last session when it came to education funding?
I would also like to thank the Day for hosting us today, and for my opponents for coming out. It's lovely to see everyone speak about the issues. In particular, in regards to Waterford's education cuts, as Ms. McCarty mentioned, the CJEF case, which spoke about the inequity in our school funding system, pointed out that not all of the public school systems are receiving funding as they should be, and the fact that Waterford took a $1 million cut on top of other municipal aid cuts was really unacceptable, and I would have liked to see more of a push to have that funding restored.
And Sharon Palmer?
Sure. And I, as well, would like to thank you for providing this opportunity for the three of us to be here today. There are lots of angles, so to speak, to this story of the cut to education aid for Waterford and many other towns. Obviously, from my perspective, and I believe to my opponent's perspective, it's unacceptable. And there are many factors, as I said, that go into it. First of all, the CJF case has been mentioned, and that pointed up all the inequities that we have in the current system. This is our third round with this. Barnaby Horton, who's still a friend of mine, I think was 8 years old when his dad filed that suit. He became an attorney, is now at Merrill Lynch, but is still an advocate for education equity as a long-serving adult in Hartford activity. I find this particularly unacceptable because, in essence, we have never had a cut this large, and there isn't any reason for it. And I'm going to get a little bit snarky here, as I sometimes do. And I would say that if we still had Andrea Stillman and Melody Peters and Betsy Ritter representing us, that would never have happened. And I hope to continue with the legacy that they have left to us and continue as a representative for the 38th in the tradition that they have left to us.
Representative McCarty, just, it's true that the driving problem was the funding issue and the budget issue is why education was being cut, but it was only cut in some areas. Other areas actually got increases. And your opponent says, effectively, did you drop the ball in that your district got hit hard while others did better?
Right. I think it's interesting, if you listen closely to my opponent's words, you hear that it was politically motivated, which I think we should transcend political motivation when it comes to educating our students. If you look at the cuts that were given throughout the state, they almost all have R's. Doesn't stand for rookie, it stands for Republican. And I, again, resent it. I've worked very hard locally for over 20 years to protect education in Waterford, and this damaged greatly our property tax will go up if we don't find ways within the budget. But because of that, we've had to make some great sacrifices on the local school board budget. Again, the Republican budget that I hope I'll have an opportunity to explain a little later did not cut education at all. All of the education grant formulas stayed the same and were returned to the municipal level. So again, I think it was politically motivated, and it was done by the majority party, which is a one-party rule in the state of Connecticut.
Yeah, before I give Ms. Palmer a chance to respond, Ms. Shaw, do you want to comment also? You're nodding your head on what you've heard so far here?
I absolutely agree with both my opponents. It was partisan politics motivated. However, it's the duty of the representative to transcend that and work across the aisle in order to restore funding for her constituents. So I believe both of them are right. However, Ms. McCarty still dropped her obligation on making sure we had the adequate amount of funding for our schools.
Ms. Palmer, reacting to Representative McCarty's contention that sounds like you're just talking about power politics again rather than kind of a fair funding, who can fight for the most funding. Could you comment on her criticism of the politics of it?
Well, I'm not sure that it was politically motivated, but that is the assertion that she has made. I think that the motivation at this point is pretty much irrelevant because we sustained a significant cut that was not able to be restored, and that's what people need to look at. The CJEF case will move forward, and it will hopefully, even though it is our third shot at this as a state, get to some solutions where we aren't arguing with one another whether it was political or not political and why town X got this cut, town Y got a different cut, and that sort of thing. I would hope that that would end. But the reality is we are where we are, and this is going to continue until that's resolved.
All right. Thank the candidates. A lot of discussion on that first question. Our next question is from Martha Shanahan, and it's to Sharon Palmer.